Good afternoon, Chaos. This is Kalatos, your friendly Legion's leader here, to do another roster review, one that is overdue for a member that has been in a number of Chaos guilds and really doing a great job on all of them, setting example, being a leader, and all around being a great Chaos member. Most of you recognize CPR. I believe he was in Rise of Chaos for a while, then he was in Legions of Chaos for a short bit, and as we consolidate for the Heroic Sith Triumvirate raid, he is now in Legacy of Chaos. CPR is really an example to anybody that would like to move through the ranks and move up, move out, improve themselves, whatever you'd like to do. He's really done a great job being there and building himself up. Now, CPR has asked that I focus primarily on mods for his Sith raid groups. A big caveat, I have never done Heroic Sith raid, but I am familiar with some of these groups. Others I have not really put together or not really played a whole lot, so I don't know, give it a try and see what happens, and maybe we can get some feedback later and see how well these groups work for CPR. So, oh, excuse me. So we start off looking, I like to check out how many Gear 12 characters you've got. Got about 7, 8, 9, 10 different Gear 12 characters. So not like super far above where many people in the guild are. I see a fair number of Gear 11 characters. So he's definitely burning the oil there a little bit, getting up to Gear 11. I'm seeing a fair amount of Dark Side that he does have a Gear 12. So just to dive right into it, the by far most useful group right now in the Sith Triumvirate raid is Resistance. Then we see a Rey Jedi training, R2-D2 and BB-8 that kind of fit the mold for the top 3. I would also throw in a Resistance Trooper for your group, CPR. He is, from everything I've seen and heard, a very strong DPS. And without a Hermit Yoda, which I don't believe, you do have unlocked a 5-star, but he's pretty far from being useful at this point. Without a Hermit Yoda, I would say your best bet is probably a Barriss Offee for your healer. Just because you might need that extra heal in that group. I could be wrong, I have been wrong before, but I would think that is your best choice. Now, as far as mods on that group go, Barriss as a healer, you will want to, again, well, you've already got it, straight health mods, as much health as possible, because her Force Healer does, well, not because of the Force Healer, that just allows people to heal their health, but her Invigorating Strike was a chance when she basic attacks to heal everybody for 6% of Barriss's max health. So you definitely want health for Barriss. Now on your Resistance players, again, I have not played Resistance much. I don't know too much about them. However, I do consider myself fairly decent at reading through character abilities, and I would imagine that Jedi Training Rey's best mod setup would be a crit chance and crit damage set. Because her crit chance is so high, you will get more bang for your buck out of crit damage than offense. Really at around 40% crit chance is where you want to start transitioning from offense mods to crit damage. And really, you're at that point where you can do that for Rey now. I would recommend a crit damage triangle here instead of straight offense. And possibly an offense cross here if you happen to have one with high speed. But given, like, she's super useful in the first phase against Darth Nihilus, I would try and find something that's not protection. And I've also heard that you really need to have her Zeta on here. So her leader, wow, puts her up to 80% crit chance. So you definitely want crit damage for her, because she's going to be doing so much damage, and she's going to be critting almost every time. So whereas your offense mods will add 10% offense, a crit damage set will add a ridiculous percentage of crit damage, like a multiplier. So you're going to want that probably more than the offense set. Now with BB-8, from my understanding, he is all about speed, because really you just want to have him pump out covert data transfers until he can get Illuminated Destiny. So if it's not your highest speed, don't put it on BB-8. He's really not useful for much. Well, he's useful, but that is by far his single biggest contribution to a group, is pumping out covert data transfer to get to Illuminated Destiny faster. Now R2, it really depends on which Zetas you have, and you do have number crunch. So if we check out number crunch real quick, it says that other droid, Galactic Republic, Rebel, and Resistance allies gain 10% of R2-D2's max protection, offense, max health, and potency until R2 is defeated. Now, because of that Zeta, I would expect R2's main mod set would be an offense set, because the higher you get his offense, the more he benefits everybody else's offense. So you really don't want a whole lot else with him. BB-8 will speed up R2 quite a bit, and because BB-8, the way his Illuminated Destiny works, whenever a droid critically hits, it reduces the cooldown of Illuminated Destiny. So because of that, I would recommend your second mod set on R2 being a crit chance set. So you'll want 4 offense mods and 2 crit chance mods on R2, looking for as much offense and health secondaries as you can find. And the last member of this group is the Resistance Trooper. Now, I see you have a ton of potency on Resistance Trooper, which is not necessarily a bad idea, but because his potency natively is so low, and because you don't get a lot of benefit, like just bringing him up to 50% potency really doesn't do a whole lot in the Sith raid. However, if you go back to Jedi Training Rey's leadership ability, whenever any Resistance ally scores a critical hit, they have a chance to inflict expose. So Resistance Trooper, you're going to want to get him as high crit chance as possible. So because right now he only has 43% crit chance, you could easily bump that up to 60-65% without counting her Zeta. So if you can get him up to 100% crit chance, I'd say go for it. You really can't have too much crit from my understanding of the way this group works. You're not going to land expose on Nihilus, so I wouldn't even try and get potency up high enough to do it, because it's just some obscene amount of potency you need to get to him after hitting him once or twice. So yeah, you just want him to hit super hard. And that is really all there is to Resistance Trooper. Now your Phase 2 squad is your Phoenix, which, you know, we're gearing up fairly well. And I've seen a little bit of a debate recently in Slack of whether or not to use Zeb or Chopper. From everything I've read, again, I'm not super experienced with Phoenix, but from everything I've read, Zeb is better, and I would think it's for his crowd control abilities. Because in Heroic, from what I hear, the ads hit super hard, so Zeb is the better option because he does have Daze and Stun on basic. His staggering sweep, he can stagger everybody, and well, his honor guard doesn't do a whole lot, but I believe his staggering sweep is where his Zeta is, and it adds even more debuffing capabilities. So I would think that Zeb is there for the protection gain and for ad control, which he probably does very well. And so with that being said, for his ad control, he needs to be able to land debuffs, and he has a fairly low potency. So I would try and get his potency up much higher, just because I would use him for ad control, or at least that's the way I understand him working in the Sith Triumvirate raid. With that being said, your leader obviously is going to be Hera Syndulla, and it's my understanding that you want her to be as fast as possible so that she can call her assists very often, and so that she can use backup plan more often. So health and speed on Hera Syndulla would be my best guess. And the next one that may not be super obvious is Kanan Jarrus. I would probably stick him with 2 health sets and 1 crit chance set. Now, why crit chance, you may ask? And that's because of his basic. He can inflict offense down on an enemy, and if he crits, that offense down cannot be resisted. Now, because you are fighting against Scion, who is a super hard hitter, if you can land offense down on him, that would be incredible. So if you can load him up with a little bit of crit chance, like maybe a crit chance triangle and a crit chance set to go along with his 2 health sets, then you might be able to reliably stick offense down on Scion. I could be wrong. Again, I've not done the raid before, but just reading through his abilities, that would be my first impression. Now, Sabine and Ezra, crit chance, crit damage, and beat the crap out of things with them. I wouldn't probably put much potency on Sabine because her Darksaber, the armor shred debuff, it's not a debuff, so it really doesn't need to pass a potency check. And her Demolish, it'd be nice to stagger the ads and expose them, but again, you really don't need to, because Zeb's role is to control the ads. So here is really to do a ton of damage and exposing allies or exposing enemies. And really, this, if it scores a critical hit, reduce Sabine's cooldowns by 2. That's kind of a big deal. And then all allies gaining crit chance up and offense up. Those are big deals, neither of which you need potency for. So I would just go straight crit chance, crit damage with speed, crit chance, and offense secondaries. Again, because you really don't need her to stick debuffs. So there's really no reason to give her much potency. And Ezra is just a wrecking machine. Crit chance and crit damage all the way with speed and offense secondaries. That's how I would gear Ezra. That's how I would mod Ezra. That's actually how I do have my Ezra modded. because I have him at gear 10, I believe. But for all of your Phoenix, those would be my recommendations. Again, not running them at a high level, not experiencing the Sith raid. Those are just my initial impressions, reading the character's abilities and seeing how they kind of work together. Moving on from those, your Imperial Troopers are looking mighty fine. I noticed that you do have a Zeta on Veers, but you even have the Zeta on Colonel Stark. So you could probably use the same group I've been using in Phase 3. I'd recommend getting Stark as fast as possible, especially because with his Zeta, he's going to be gaining a lot of turn meter every time, and because of his scan all wavelengths, he adds turn meter to everybody. So you definitely want to get him as fast as possible. I'd recommend your second fastest character being General Veers, so that he can call the Ruthless Assault as often as possible. I see some decent speed there. Your Snowtrooper with that group, crit chance and crit damage. No need for speed, get speed off of him. He is like the Clone Trooper Sergeant in the fact that all of his turn meter is going to come from his unique. He kills stuff and he gets turn meter. It's that simple. One AoE, he can gain 60 turn meter at least. So he really doesn't need a lot of speed. You're going to be calling him in for assists. Things are going to be dying. He's going to be shooting with them. I would recommend just getting him to hit as hard as possible because his hits are already so dang strong. To go with that group, I would say Death Trooper, who you have modded just the way you have it right now, with a decent amount of speed. He doesn't need any potency, protection, health, offense, whatever. Triangle, crit chance would be or crit damage would be a better option. But he's there primarily for Death Mark, which can't be resisted anyways, so you don't need potency. And to go along with them would be your third fastest character in that group, Grand Admiral Thrawn, who you have maxed, and an Ebb and Flow Zeta. Sweet. And I see a lot of speed on him already, so not too bad. Your Imperial Troopers, fastest Colonel Stark, second fastest General Veers, third fastest Grand Admiral Thrawn. Fourth fastest with as much offense and crit chance and crit damage as Death Trooper, and as little speed as you can get while still getting tons of hard-hitting mods, Snow Trooper. That's how I run my Imperial Troopers, and I think my results speak for themselves there. I did notice a couple other possible teams that you have, and this next team is one that's kind of a hot topic for contention right now. Some people are saying why not, others saying they're useless. But Jawas, I know you've kind of seen my videos on Jawas, so if you get the time and want to gear them, I would say Chief Nebbit and Jawa Engineer are the most important, making sure that you have an Omega on Jawa Engineer's miniaturized detonator, because it does a lot of damage. So you want to try and get that on him, pump him up with as much speed as possible, remembering that his unique, when it has an Omega, I'm sorry, not an Omega, just it's maxed, it has 10 speed for each Jawa ally, so he's getting plus 40 speed, so you can really hit speeds upwards of 300 with Jawa Engineer. And then the rest of them, load them up with health. You also have a possible Sith team or two here. Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, Sith Trooper, Sith Assassin, and Darth Nihilus would be a great Phase 2 group. Darth Vader, obviously, you want offense and some speed, but you really don't want him to be... Well, if you have him in Arena, just leave his mods the way they are. You don't really want to change them too much. Sith Trooper, I have mine modded for defense and health. I found that even though his debuffs are nice. I'd much rather him have a high tenacity, defense, and health than the ability to apply his debuffs, especially in the Sith raid. Darth Nihilus, he doesn't do a ton of damage with his basic ability. He's there really just to annihilate. So he's going to want to be, speed is the only thing that matters for him, as well as your Sith Trooper. Now your Sith Trooper is going to hit pretty hard, but you really, not Sith Trooper, Sith Assassin, you want to get her as fast as possible because she's going to fuel turn meter for this team. Okay, she's going to, with her, make sure that you use exploit weakness whenever you can, and make sure not to use Dark Shroud unless she already has stealth. If she already has stealth, she's going to be giving at least 60% turn meter to everybody on your team. Okay, so don't use Dark Shroud unless you are already stealthed. And you can just use Electrocute on cooldown, but as much offense mods as you can get while keeping her as fast as possible would be your best option with Sith Assassin. Those are all the notes that I had written down now. That gives you your resistance and possibly Jawas for phase 1, Phoenix for phase 2, Imperial Troopers for phase 3, and these Sith could probably go into phase 2. Or if you want to use them in the phase 4, you could switch to a Darth Nihilus lead. You really would want to take out Sith Trooper and throw in maybe Savage Opress or Darth Maul. So you'd run a Darth Nihilus, Sith Assassin, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, and Savage Opress Sith for phase 4. That's what I would do. I don't see too many other like ridiculously overpowered groups. I mean, obviously you've got some good rebels here that you could use. Maybe Commander Luke with Baze, Chirrut, Raid Han, and a healer you could throw in there, or even your Rogue One rebels. I wonder if that might not be a bad option. Your Rogue One under a Jyn Erso lead. Actually, now I think about it, it wouldn't be a great job. Never mind. So yeah, the Commander Luke Skywalker with Chirrut and Baze, Raid Han, and maybe Princess Leia, or a healer of some kind. I mean, you can really get creative with your rebels. I looked at your Night Sisters. They're really not where they need to be to performing in the raid, so there's a ways to go for them. And then I checked out also your First Order, who need plenty of gear as well. So lots of stuff to work on, lots of mods to kind of look at. Hopefully I've given you some ideas and some things you could work on for the foreseeable future. So with that said, I would say good luck CPR in the Sith raid. I hope you guys knock it out soon and start getting in those Treya shards. Know that I will be super jealous. But until that time, keep working. You're doing a great job. And don't give up. This is Akelitos saying good night.